The last thing we want to think about when we're meditating is how cold we are. All right, well, I can get started. Well, thank you. Hello, welcome, good morning, week 2. So I want each week to kind of layer on top of one another. And if you missed week 1, don't stress. It's recorded on my YouTube channel, so you can follow along for the hour that we had that session. Week 1 was more or less just an introduction to meditation, mindfulness, very high level of what to expect from a meditation practice. We did try a very brief 15-minute meditation, and we had a very nice reflection afterwards on just realizing just all the distractions that come up. Positive distractions, negative distractions. But, the idea being that, distractions aren't a problem. It's more or less how we relate to the problem that becomes the problem. And so, worrying about children. That's not a problem, but it becomes a problem when we start ruminating over it. When we give more and more importance to that than to the fact that we're just sitting and breathing, which is what a lot of this practice is. And so today it's about understanding what it is that we're doing when we're meditating. What is the practice that we're trying to build this discipline around? And if you were to search up like the type of style of meditation that I typically teach, it's known as Ānāpānasati. Ana, inhale, pana, exhale. It is just the fact that we are being mindful, we are remembering that we are inhaling and exhaling for the duration that we are sitting. So what that means is that when you breathe in, you know that you are breathing in. You feel the breath as it enters through your nostrils, as it travels down maybe to your chest, to your belly. And as you breathe out through your nose, you feel the breath on its way out of the belly, out of the chest. Simple enough, but when we practice, when we sit, we realize just how delicate that balance is in maintaining that concentration of our mind. So do try to understand that, like we observed last week, distractions are going to come up. Doesn't matter how disciplined your mind is. Doesn't matter if you're me, someone that's been meditating longer than most of you, or if you're someone new to the meditation. Distractions are going to be there. Only difference being, I guess, with me at this point in time is that I don't take my distractions as seriously. At least I've been able to reframe my relationship out of my distractions so that when I see a distraction come up, I can acknowledge it for what it is. It's a thought, it's a feeling, it's a good thought, it's a bad thought, a pleasant thought, an unpleasant thought, a pleasant feeling, an unpleasant feeling, whatever it may be. But I have the ability to set it aside. And occasionally, even for me, a strong thought comes up, a strong feeling comes up that demands my attention. And one of the things that we spoke about last week is if something is so pressing on your mind, don't then be playing the tug of war of, do I acknowledge it? Do I let it go? Do I let it be, or do I indulge it? If it is something that is very pressing, simple tool to have, pen and paper, write it down. Write down what comes up during your meditation, and then come back to your meditation. So that's something like a 30-second window of you opening your eyes, writing down what it was that was fluttering around the mind, is enough to then you to go back to your meditation, not having to worry about, okay, after my meditation finishes, am I still going to remember what I had thought of? Because it's going to be there. So when it comes to today's practice, we're going to focus on what the Buddha taught, which was this Ānāpāna, this remembering of your inhales and exhales. Very simple technique, not meant to be convoluted or overly complicated. That was one of the ways that the Buddha wanted to provide his teachings, to be so simple that there was no room for interpretation. So if people had their questions, they could be asked, but then it couldn't be spun into a way that, then makes this simple practice of being aware of your breath into something mystical, something more ephemeral, or whatever the word may be. But we're working with the breath as it is. So we're working with reality as it is. We are working with truth as it is. And the truth is the truth of the breath. The truth is that we are dealing with the fact that the breath comes in, the breath goes out. But the challenge for most of us is that we don't give this any consideration. And that's kind of the cool thing about being a human being, is that there are millions of things, bodily functions that happen without no control. One of like the very interesting thought experiments is like, imagine waking up every morning and having to turn on your body. Like, okay, foot turn on, okay, legs turn on, okay, heart start beating, okay, lungs start breathing, okay, stomach start digesting. You would never get out of bed because it would take all day to turn on all of your bodily functions. And so in that sense, the body's really cool. It does all of these things without us having to tell it to do it. But then the challenge of that is that there are certain things that we do because we've never given them any consideration. We take the path of least resistance. And in the terms of our breath, that means a lot of us have developed, I would say, not the greatest relationship to the breath, or we've built poor habits around the breath. So one of the poorest habits we have is just shallow breathing. Shallow breathing in which we only work with like the upper quarter of the lung capacity that we have. And we lose out on the strength of the lungs. We don't strengthen the lungs. We don't strengthen the diaphragm. We lose out on a lot of the ability to bring energy into the body and to release stagnant energy out of the body. In our yoga practices, breath is known as prana, P-R-A-N-A. I've spoke about this before. Prana, loosely translated, can be translated as life-giving force. We are born on an inhale, we pass away on an exhale. Breath is the first thing that enters you when you are born. It is the last thing that leaves you when you pass away. But the sad reality is, very few of us, or a lot of us, don't have any kind of conscious relationship to the breath. So that was one of the things that I spoke about last week, is that the average person only becomes aware of their breath in moments of heightened emotional states. Think anger, think panic and anxiety, think deep depression, all of these things where it's no longer like a bubbling of emotion, but the bubbling has erupted. So it's like a volcano spewing and there's no control over it. And the challenge of noticing your emotions or noticing your breath in this kind of situation is that you don't have the toolkit at that point, or the discipline, or the ability, simply put, to deal with yourself in that heightened emotional state. And so our meditation practice becomes that bridge in which we learn to sit with ourselves, the truth of ourselves. When it comes to some of my deep stretch classes that I lead, I make a comment that it's so astounding that the body holds as much tension as it does, but we're still able to function relatively all right day to day. And a lot of people, they come to me with all of their excuses of like, like yoga looks great, but I'm not flexible, so it's not for me. Or meditation sounds great, but I can't sit still, so it can't be for me. So on one hand, they can acknowledge that there's something wrong with them. And just in the sense that their body is so tight, their minds are so tense. They can acknowledge that first half. But instead of going through the little bit of suffering that we have to go through to sit with this truth or to work with this truth, it's just like, okay, but it'll get better someday, right? Question mark? Like, maybe, maybe not. But if we don't do anything about it, chances are nothing's going to happen. And so when it comes to this meditation practice, a lot of people come trying to find peace of mind, you're trying to relax and all that kind of stuff. And it's not to say that that's not there. But before peace is found, before we clean up the mind, as I said last week, we got to look at the skeletons we have in the closet. What is stopping you from experiencing peace right in this moment? For some of us, it's chronic illness. We have some form of chronic condition in the body. For others, it's just so much stress in the mind, so much busyness in the mind. And searching for peace outside of us, like it's a missing piece of a puzzle, is sometimes just going to lead you further and further away from peace. When the reality may be that for some of us, that missing piece of the puzzle is already within you, but it's being crowded by all of this other nonsense, all of this baggage that you carry within you. So we try our best to use this meditation practice. I like to use the word space, mental space being one of the biggest assets that this tool of meditation can provide. And so when it comes to today's practice, the whole theme of this is going to be learning to work with the breath. Because that gets asked a lot. It's like, okay, I'm closing my eyes and I'm breathing. Is that it? Well, yes, to some degree, but there's a way that we can just start to develop a better relationship to the breath so that we aren't at odds with it or that we don't get confused by it. So one of the monks that I read a lot about, his name is the Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. Some of you may have had some of his books or anything like that. His quote is very simple. Breathing in, I know I am breathing in, as I just said. Breathing out, I know I am breathing out. Period. Class is dismissed. Like that is as simple as of a meditation practice as we can make it. It's not breathing in, I know I am breathing in, and I am also thinking about what I have planned later today. Or as I'm breathing out, I know I am breathing out, but then I am also acknowledging the fact that I am fidgeting and all this kind of stuff. That stuff is all happening, and whatever needs to happen in the future is going to happen in the future. But for the time being that we are meditating, that is all that we want. It is a very practical practice. It doesn't ask anything more of you other than just to be fully aware, which is challenging because there's so many things that pull us away. Now, couple of misconceptions that are worth clearing up when it comes to the practice. People think that they're not good at meditating because their mind wanders. We have to understand what awareness is. Awareness is you being aware of something, you noticing something. And if the mind is working correctly, it is going to be aware of a lot of things. The challenge when we start to meditate is because the mind has never been given this opportunity to be aware of what's happening when you are completely still, it notices a lot. It notices everything. And so we almost become hyper aware that it borders paranoia. That the slightest, discomfort in the knee, in your daily life when you'd be walking around, that same discomfort in your knee may not even be acknowledged. Or if I'm working on scales of 1 to 10, it may only feel like a 2 or a 3. But here we are where nothing else is happening. We're just sitting, we're just breathing, we're just noticing what's happening. And that same discomfort comes up. But because now this discomfort is right in front of you to observe, it's not being distracted away by your headphones on, the traffic, you just walking around, you thinking about other things. What day to day, it feels like a 2 or a 3. In this moment of your meditation practice, feels like a 5, 6, 7, whatever it is. And so what we have to do is learn how to direct the mind when it wanders, to bring it back to the point of our meditation, the object of our meditation, which is our breath. People think that when this kind of stuff happens, when the mind starts to wander away, that we need to focus even harder on the breath. And that ends up going against the grain of meditation. We should be trying to find effortless effort. I like that word because it's just a weird way to put it, but it shouldn't take effort to focus on the breath. No doubt at the start, when we're centering ourselves, when we're identifying the breath, when we're observing the breath, when we're starting to build that relationship of the breath, we need to keep the mind with the breath. And it's like what I had mentioned last week, once again, when we're trying to tame this wild horse that the Tibetans used as an example, that the breath becomes the path for that horse to walk upon. And so we do have to be a bit more mindful of how we breathe so that this mind of ours can stay with the breath as it goes forward on the path. But then over time, we no longer need to tell ourselves how to breathe. We no longer have to force the breath out of the body or into the body. We just let the breath happen. And then some of us end up having to manipulate the breath from time to time. And that is quite all right. We are trying to work with natural breath. So I like to think of it as the breath that we wake up with first thing in the morning, when the body is still quite at rest, when the mind isn't being polluted with all the busyness of your day. It is just a natural breath that comes in and out, no effort required. The challenge with that natural breath for some of us is that it is very subtle. Subtle just being in the sense that it's very quiet, it's very soft, it's very slow. It's one thing to meditate with a breath like that. It'd be another thing to be that is a lot of force. That is a lot of effort. That is not conducive to a meditation practice, because that is not the breath that you would carry on with the rest of your day with. We work with the breath that we carry with us for most of our day, which is our natural breath. And a natural breath will get you further in a meditation practice than a controlled breath. And we do try to control our breath in different ways, counting being one of them. We verbalize it, we visualize it. And these tools, they're helpful. So as you breathe in, 1 can be used. As you exhale, 2 can be used. That's one method of counting. So you would count up to 10 in that regard. Others, it would be 1, 1, 2, 2. So 1 inhale, 1 exhale, 2 inhale, 2 exhale. And once again, arbitrary, go up to 10. But then the idea being that if you lose track of where you were at any point during the counting of 10, you start over. And for a lot of beginners, they never make it to 10. You just start counting, and then somewhere along the counting, a thought comes up and you get drifted away, and then you got to start back at 1. And that ends up also being another thing. It's, people think that I don't make it to 10, I'm not meditating correctly. But the act of meditation is you coming back and starting over and starting over and over and over again, until it's not that you're starting over, you're just continuing. We just learn to reframe the relationship of how we work with the breath. One thing I like to say is that, as much as we are the ones breathing, so there is this act of us being the ones in control of the breath, we have to also see it from the opposite side of things, in that the breath just simply happens. You can control your breath, sure, but how long can you hold your breath? It's not indefinite. You're going to get to the point where the body is going to resist holding the breath, and at which point you have no choice but to breathe. You have to let the breath enter. And so when it comes to working with our meditation practice, if we try to control our breath, we're missing the point. The breath happens on its own. We just provide the space. So if we can create the conditions in which the body is soft, the mind is relaxed, the breath will effortlessly enter and exit the body. And we are just that observer. We are taking a step back from the action of breathing to watch the breath as it happens. Does that make sense? Any questions so far about what I've said? Okay. I'm doing better this time around. A lot more tangents last time. I've created more structure. So this will lead us to now a roughly 15 to 20 minute meditation practice. I will guide. Today's emphasis being more about treating your breath as that place in which you keep coming back to. So last week we may have noticed that as we were breathing, the mind was wandering, but we may not have been so sure of how to work with that mind as it wanders. So today we'll have this idea that we treat our breath as like a home base, as this centering point in which we keep coming back time and time again. Not holding ourselves in contempt, not being disheartened if we get distracted, not becoming upset, dejected, because that's just all negative energy that influences your practice. It's the ability to let all of these distractions go time and time and time again, so that we can start fresh every time we begin again. So, those of you, if you wish, blocks are always available to be used underneath your legs. Backrest is available. Over time, it does take time. The body needs to adjust to sitting cross-legged, to sitting without backrest, since we're so used to it in our chairs. But the idea is, over time, you will develop the strength within your physical body to sit upright. In other meditation practices, like some of the ones that I do, exposing the back is a very valuable part of the practice, because there's a lot of energy that's hidden back here that we don't feel in our day-to-day. And when we rest it up against a wall, we lose some of that contact of feeling those really small points. I'm getting more into the nuance of things, so I don't want you to be like, okay, he's talking about energy on the back, I got to sit up. But just understand that, at the start, there is an adjustment period for the body. And my ask was a very simple ask last week. Who meditated 10 minutes a day?
I did, but not all 7 days.
Okay, that's still fine.
Sunday, yes.
So mine takes a break on the weekend? Okay, noted. So, that those first few meditations that we do, they are an adjustment period. You have to identify what works well for you. Me sitting cross-legged at this point in time works well for me. Some of us may prefer to sit with legs extended. Some of us will sit in some different way. I can't go lotus position, but there are different meditation postures depending on what is available in your body. Even to go to the extent of, if you're unable to sit, I've mentioned lying down is an option. Just got to be very sharp with the mind because the body gets very soft. Sitting in a chair, being that happy medium in which your legs aren't as burdened, but you're still able to sit in a posture. So take these first couple of minutes as we soften into the body. Find your meditation posture to begin. We try our best to find a comfortable, upright position in which the legs can be comfortable. Your hands can rest, whether that's on your knees, on your legs, or in your lap. But understand that nothing special needs to happen here. We're just trying to find something comfortable, something relaxed. We did explore last week just the idea of creating tension, to notice what tension feels like, scrunching up the forehead, maybe clenching the jaws, shrugging the shoulders, making fists, just to feel tension in your body so that you can release and soften it. If it's available within your body, allowing the muscles around your eyes to soften, to close. If that feels like a lot to initially work with, then we can always just look down at the ground, casting our gaze somewhere on the floor in front of us, just so that we don't get distracted by all the things in front of us, so that we center ourselves below us. So we start here. Not even worrying initially about breath. Getting the body comfortable, relaxed. We calm down the mind. We quiet it down as much as we can. And this sense of getting comfortable, relaxed, calm, quiet, it doesn't need to be rushed. Before any of that even happens, we may have to take a few moments to just acknowledge what we are feeling today. So there may be a particular area of the body that needs to get relaxed. The shoulders, the hips. Could be that there's something pressing on your mind, something that you have planned later today or later this week, or something that's happened earlier today or over the weekend. Now, when it comes to finding your breath, typically there's 3 areas that you will find it in. Towards the nostrils, around the chest, or lower down within the belly. You don't have to feel the breath in all 3 places. If it happens, great. But for today, See where out of these three places you feel your breath most clearly. So we don't have to breathe in any special way. We don't have to force the breath to get deeper into the body. Notice where your natural breath is felt. Around your nostrils, around your chest, around your belly. Choose one to give more importance towards. If you do require more energy to be brought into the breath, you can always take some deeper breaths. Slightly longer breaths, slightly harder breaths, to establish or re-establish connection to your breath. But once that connection is made, once you feel connected to breath, let it become soft. Bring it back to its natural state. Now, as your awareness darts from maybe chest, belly, nostrils, to just figure out what feels most clear, there is a chance that your mind wanders, trying to figure out which one works best as your anchor. Noticing your mind wandering is a part of the practice. That is the practice. That is a sense of mindfulness. It doesn't matter how long the mind wandered for, but the moment we notice it wandering, that is us becoming mindful to what is happening. And having noticed the mind wander, we bring it back to breath. No animosity towards the mind, no frustration towards the mind. Just picking up where you left off as if nothing ever changed or nothing ever happened. We notice distractions when they happen, we acknowledge distractions when they happen, and we return to our breath. We remain anchored to our inhales and exhales, feeling the in-breath, feeling the out-breath. Centering our attention towards where we feel breath most clearly. Nostrils, chest, belly. Reminding yourself that when you notice your mind wandering, that is a mindful action. To be aware of the mind wandering away, to acknowledge that it did wander, and to bring your mind back to your breath. letting the qualities of your breath extend outwards to your body and mind. The softness of your breath, allowing for your body to remain soft. The quietness of your breath, allowing your mind to remain quiet. And once again, any time a distraction comes up, whether within your control or out of your control, notice it, acknowledge it, and return to your breath as if nothing happened. We can invite a deeper breath back into the body as we come to the end of our meditation. Palms can come closer together. Palms can begin to rub as heat gets created within our hands. And allowing for that heat to wash over your face as you then take your time to reopen your eyes. So just a couple of minutes for silent reflection. Simple question. It's like, what did you notice in your meditation? Physically, what did you notice? Mentally, what did you notice? And there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer, but this is just a moment of reflection post-meditation. If you noticed something that was worth noticing, great. If There was very little to notice, no problem. And then the question that would relate to what did we notice is, how did we come back? So we may have noticed certain distractions, physical distractions, mental distractions, environmental distractions. But then how did we come back to our practice? How did we come back to our breath? And then to open up the floor along those questions, what did you notice about coming back to your breath? Was it something that was easily done? Was it something that required a bit of convincing for your mind to do? Did it create a disruption in the flow of your meditation? Or were you able to let go of the distraction as if nothing happened and begin again, return again? So that also would tell you a little bit about your relationship to your distractions and your relationship to how you choose to practice. Where did your breath feel the most obvious? And for each of us, it may be somewhere different. The entrance of the nose, the nostrils, the tip of the nose, chest, belly. Show of hands, who used their nostrils as their anchor for breath? Who used their chest? Who used their belly? So there's no right or wrong way to work with the breath. Main way to think about it is that, at least how it was explained to me. You okay?
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
A little tickle in my throat.
It happens. It happens. The way that the breath was explained to me, and just how I like to think about it, is when we work deeper into the body, belly, chest, we can feel a lot more of the physical sensation of breath. We can feel the movement of the body. If we're laying down on our back, the rising and falling of the belly and chest. When we're seated up, it's more of just the expansion and contraction of the chest cavity. And that's a great place to start off with meditation practices, because it's a more gross sensation. Gross not as in ew, ugly, or anything like that, just gross, more bigger scale. The challenge when we start to shift awareness to the nose is that it becomes subtler. It's a subtle breath. Unless you are breathing like that, which is not what we're trying to do when it comes to working with the nose. We want it to be subtle. The challenge with the subtlety of the breath is that with the body already soft as it is, when the breath becomes that subtle, the body has the chance, it runs the risk of like falling into that deep sleep of the breath. And so it's that balancing act of soft body, comfortable body, relaxed body, but the mind is sharp. It is razor sharp that it can cut through any distraction that comes up. And for some of us, naturally, as we're starting meditation practices, we have like a butter knife. And it takes a bit of time sometimes to cut through a distraction. And then over time, we just keep sharpening the knife, the awareness of our mind, the alertness of our mind, so that when that distraction comes up later in your practices or as you develop your practice, what took maybe a bit of convincing or a bit of time to break through, to cut through, over time it's able to get sliced through as it shows up. No doubt it takes time, it takes practice, and we have to normalize the fact that there is no such thing as a bad meditation. It doesn't matter if you coughed halfway through and you had to leave, that's just the reality of it. But we can still keep a quality of mind. Thank you. I understand you don't want to disturb anyone's peace and all that kind of stuff. I've heard women fart, so they all fart. I know that. I've heard all of the bodily sounds in meditation halls. So, we want to be courteous and kind to one another, but there's still a way to maintain the continuity of practice with eyes open, with eyes closed. If anybody wishes to share, as they did last week, like what showed up when your mind wandered today? Was it something like the wind? Wind caught me off guard because it started blowing really fast and I could feel the door moving behind me, the window moving behind me. So it's it sometimes just piques your interest. It's like, oh, like let's look. Like why not, right? Like let's just open our eyes. Our eyes become such a guilty pleasure. So we don't have to be upset about the distractions, but it's like, okay, what pulled me away? Was it something within my control or something outside of my control? Something that piqued my curiosity or something that demanded my attention? And understanding what distractions impact us will ultimately help us down the line when we continue to work with the nature of our mind. So we have to learn, a big part of this meditation practice, learning to develop a positive relationship to the mind. Not just when the mind is working in your favor, but more often than not, when the mind doesn't care to work in your favor. And that is when we have to have that healthy relationship to our mind. And in the most basic sense, we're trying our best to be like, hey mind, can you just stay with the breath for the 15 minutes that we're meditating? And at the start, the mind's like, okay, sure, why not? We'll give it a go. And then something comes up in a minute, 2 minutes, a couple of seconds, and the mind's like, ooh, piece of candy, you know? And then you're like, no, mind, no candy for now, put it away. And then it'll be like, okay, we'll breathe. Ooh, a pretty flower. It's like squirrel chasing nuts all over the place, you know? So over time, it's that wild horse thing, right? We pave the path with the breath, with the hope, with the conviction that the horse will walk on the path. And as we tame the horse, as we build a deeper relationship to the horse will listen and it'll follow along. But every so often, doesn't matter how tame that horse is, it's probably going to be something that causes the horse to drift away from the path. And when the horse drifts away from the path, we don't have to scold it, we don't have to beat it, we don't have to get upset at it. We just usher it back onto the path. Noreen, you had your hand?
Oh, I was listening to podcasts how our minds tend to want to sometimes catastrophize. Mm-hmm. So when the wind was blowing, I opened my eyes just to see what was happening. I thought, oh, I hope that tree doesn't fall. Exactly what that podcast is about. And so
I don't see that tree falling anytime soon.
Yeah, I had a big little giggle to myself and just like, okay, you need to put that out of your head and just go back to clearing your mind.
But it's humorous, right? It's the mind. Mind can turn something. A sound entered your mind space, the sound of the cold wind. And that sound turned into a whole narrative of that sound is somehow going to blow down the tree. And once we can take the step back to just see the absurdity of that narrative, it does create humor for us, right? So we have to be able to find the humor in something instead of like the opposite of it. There's no reason to get upset about it. The mind does what the mind does, right? It's wandering away. It's creating these stories, and we don't have to get upset at it. We're just like, okay, haha, good joke, good funny story, mind. Let's set that aside. Let's come back to our practice.
It's so interesting how you had a different experience with the wind and how you had a different experience with the wind. For me, I welcomed it. I welcomed the sound. It felt very much, it felt very supportive. And throughout my meditation, there were points where I was feeling like quite distracted and stuff like that. And actually what you said in the beginning, the Ānāpānasati, helped bring me back in a way that even surprised me during my meditation, because normally I think of distractions like clouds passing in the sky. And it wasn't quite helping me today. And so I brought it back to what he had said, just like in and out and stuff. And I was feeling kind of like a bit agitated because there were like so many thoughts and stuff like that. And then the wind went in the end and I suddenly felt calmer because I was like, okay.
It blew away your distractions, right?
Yeah. It's like white noise almost, right?
Yeah. So it's so interesting here.
And so, like in that sense, the wind becomes a tool for you. You've tapped into nature. Your meditation was with breath, but you're also meditating on the sound of nature. And in that sense, you're allowing the sound of nature, this wind, this element that is all around us, to blow away something that no longer is helping you, which is all these thoughts in your mind.
I think what was the hardest thing is what I thought would be sitting against the wall would help me. Because last time I sat there, and I did feel some discomfort, but today I was so physically uncomfortable.
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 Really?
Yeah. Which which is surprising because I'm not going to have a wall support.
Yeah.
And so I think I have to play around a good posture, but I was trying not to continue being frustrated, so I just keep coming back to my breaths, and then I was getting distracted. And the wind just felt everything. I was feeling, I was like, okay.
And that's wonderful, right? It's if we continue to ruminate on something that, is initially very small, you noticed something, you're like, okay, I noticed today that my body doesn't feel the same as it felt last week. On one hand of things, the mind can then start to spiral in the sense that it's like constantly comparing last week's meditation. And in this sense, you would now consider this week's meditation a bad meditation because last week's meditation was a good meditation. I'm not saying you did, but
It was different.
and which is why I say that there's no such thing as a bad meditation. If we work in senses of comparison, so in this example, last week, she didn't have the discomfort. As a result of not having discomfort, we would naturally consider that good. So we were able to work with the meditation practice and it felt great. Today, we tried something different and it didn't provide a result that we thought it might provide. Thought being backrest, supportive, less discomfort, more meditation time. But somehow that didn't compute today. And so if we, on one hand, travel down the path of then constant comparison of why, trying to figure out why. Trying to figure out why is one of the biggest wastes of energy that we can sometimes try to dedicate our energy towards. But in the other hand of things, it's just like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with today. I'm not going to consider it good. I'm not going to consider it bad. I'm just going to consider it different. And that difference is just you switching a perspective of not identifying the experience as good, as bad, but just simply as is. And that, I think, is a very liberating experience, that it can, unchain us from things in the past that we would let weigh us down. And then here we are with a perspective that we are a bit more open-minded to working with experiences that may not have been what we thought they might be. Did you do anything in particular of getting your mind to come back when it got distracted? How did you work with that?
I really liked what you repeatedly said, which was, if your mind wanders, that's you being mindful, right?
You noticing that your mind has wandered is mindfulness.
And I thought that was amazing because I hadn't heard that from you before. And so I think before, when your mind wanders, you kind of feel like you're failing, right? Like, because you're trying to figure this out. But the way you said it, you were succeeding. That is you actually achieving mindfulness and meditation, is you realizing that it's happening and bringing it back. So it's like you were doing it right? So my mind would wander and I would just bring it right back, which was great. And I think you noticed me check the phone because I thought that went by so fast. Like I didn't.
Still 15 minutes, yeah.
It felt so fast.
Yeah.
Today. But I love what you said about your mind wandering isn't a bad thing. It's just you being mindful. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing, which is kind of amazing. I really like that.
Before we change, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, we have to acknowledge or notice that change needs to be made. And in this sense, you've noticed that the original state, which was mind with breath, has changed. Mind wandered. And you noticing mind wandered is you being mindful of the mind wandering. And in that sense, mindfulness presents you with the opportunity to create change. You can choose to still be mindless at that point and just let the mind wander. But if you are truly mindful with your experience and coming back to the object of meditation, you notice that the mind wandered away from its base state of being with breath, and you've brought it back. That is the whole journey of meditation, of coming back and starting again and beginning again.
And that lens, like looking at it from that perspective, was easier to come back to versus, oh, my mind wandered. It shouldn't be wandering. Why is it wandering? I really suck at this. Like it didn't take me down that path.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, good job.
Yeah.
You noticed, now go back. Like,
Yeah.
Like it was so quick for me to come back today because it was more, I'm doing it right than I was feeling. And it's just semantics, right?
Yes.
How you said it today just made it feel very, very different.
And I think even though it is semantics, because words matter a lot. And how we frame our words matter a lot to us. Words carry energy, words have their own power. And just that simple change in wording from the positive or from the negative to the positive makes a huge difference in how your body receives the energy of those words. And in that sense, it created a lot less friction in your path to coming back.
It was instant.
It's like you putting on shoes to walk over twigs versus you walking barefoot to walk over twigs. You're just putting on your shoes to walk back, to come back. That's awesome. Anybody have anything else they want to share?
Things to say.
Yes, of course.
One is coming back to the breath. I found it a lot easier if I breathe through my mouth. With cold breeze going in and warm breeze coming up. So the concentration on that part rather than the nostril was so much easier. So, and it was good. I felt good. And I had to come back a couple of times. I've been thinking about something yesterday evening and this morning, because there's something I've got to decide by 4 o'clock today. And in the quiet peace, that distraction came in, but quite frankly, logically, things fell into place and I made my decision. So the funny thing is that it was a distraction and I wanted to get it out, but I was in a calm state. So I thought about it, I decided what to do, and then I got back to breathing through my mouth and felt that cold breeze and I came back. So
That's awesome.
That's wonderful.
it
3 hours
yeah.
early.
I didn't expect, honestly, I didn't expect it. But it was calmer and so.
Now, my clever comment always is nose is meant for breathing, mouth is meant for eating.
Yeah.
And over time, you will be able to feel temperature difference through your nostrils. No doubt, mouth is going to be able to feel it, but your inhales and exhales have 2 different temperatures. Fact. That's not fiction. That's fact. But it takes effort to feel that in here, as opposed to being able to feel it along the salivary glands, because your mouth is a bit more moist than the nostrils. All this kind of stuff, but something worked and he used it and it brought him back to what he needed to do. So that is a win in that sense. So this leaves us with just what to take away from this. Once again, I will stress 10 to 15 minutes of daily practice, bare minimum. If you still are trending towards 5, that's no problem. But making it a habit matters the most. If you can brush your teeth daily, you can meditate daily.
What I tried for 5 days, the 10 minutes seemed much longer doing it alone. And you got distracted. I would look, I have the 10 minutes over, look at the watch a couple of times, and not even 5 minutes was over. So that I found quite funny. But in a situation when you're in a group, it just seems to go through. Yeah.
Definitely. So, have your timers, have all of these things, anything that helps you not worry about, like, is my watch turned on or is my phone turned on, or like, oh, maybe, there's no way, I missed the alarm or something like that. Just have whatever it is that helps you have that peace of mind that until I hear a sound or until I hear something, I'm still in my meditation time window.
Yesterday I put the alarm on.
Mm-hmm.
It worked, yeah.
Great. So some of us put up their hands for, feeling breath through the nose, some of us through the chest, some of us in the belly. The choices are there. You can experiment to see if one of those, if you started with nose today, maybe the breath in the chest or the belly feels a bit better, or vice versa. But ultimately, for the duration of the practice, once you can identify your anchor, stick with it. We don't want to keep alternating, like, okay, nose for a few minutes, then chest for a few minutes, then belly for a few minutes. Try to find the one that works best for you that day. And some days things are going to change. Winter season's here, congestion's there. So some days the nose is just going to be harder to breathe out of, or in out of as well. So that's where like mouth breathing can be a bit more appropriate and acceptable. Some days, it's, if you've had a full belly, maybe breathing all the way into the belly may be a bit difficult. We don't ever really want to meditate on full stomachs. It's just very draining. But these are small questions that you can ask yourself in the initial minutes of meditation. Finding the breath so that we're only working with the breath. We're just still developing awareness of breath this week and last week. And then if we want to do like an informal practice, so using the example of you checking your phone, not knowing the time, take one mindful breath before doing that. Before, opening a door, before answering a phone, before doing any action that requires your energy, take one mindful breath. Close your eyes if you need to, ground down, pause, find stillness, stop. One full inhale, one full exhale, and then do what you were going to do. And just see if that connection helps, because that is how we translate the meditation mind into real life. Otherwise, if we're only finding our sense of peace and these qualities that we're trying to cultivate here while we're seated, then it's a very short-lived benefit for the practice. The real hope is, how do we take what we cultivate here and apply it when we walk out the door? And these are like small informal practices. When you're talking to someone, before answering someone, breathe. Just let the breath hold its space. Space is so powerful, and breath is all that we need to create that space for ourselves, for the person next to us. Even if the person can't see it before you pick up the phone, space has been created. And that little bit of space can transform an experience in a way that you may not even consider. We're beyond time. So yeah, thank you all for coming today. This was week 2. We will keep building week over week over week. For those of us that weren't here last week, I will provide my YouTube channel. You can, if you wish, to watch just what was covered in week 1, that's available. And then week 2, I had a bit of things that happened last week, so I'll upload it a bit earlier this week. So thank you all for coming. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great rest of your week. Thank you. Nice.